Hello, welcome back to Humble Running. Today I'm going to be looking at the best cushioned shoes of 2025. Last week I covered the best of 2025 and I focused more on racing performance type of shoes. There are some racing options here on the table in front of me, but I'm actually going to lean into more of the training side of the spectrum here, less so on the lightweight performance racers. We're going to talk about racking up the miles, probably a little bit more enhanced durability, certainly a little bit more cushion underfoot. I'm not going to have any speed racers out here, none of those lightweight type of shoes today. We're strictly looking at cushion underfoot, protection, comfort over longer distances and miles. Some of these are going to have varying degrees on that. I believe we're looking at 35 millimeter under the heel for every single one of the shoes on the table here, and I believe these are all actually shoes that were released in 2025. There may be one or two that were closer to the winter or the end of the fall in 2024. So I'm going to do a similar format to my last video. I'm going to mix in a little bit of Q&A questions here and there. I tried to pull one or two questions for each of these shoes on the table over here. As with all of my Q&As, reviews, any type of content that I do, everything is coming straight from my head. I have my little spreadsheet on the side here so I can double check specs. I don't want to give out any of the wrong information. I'll put stuff up on the screen as I go. I will also pop up little thumbnails here and there on the screen for related content specific to these shoes, and maybe shoes and reviews that I've done that are, you know, in the realm or whatever. So keep a lookout for those. Always check down in the description below. Anything that I put up over here as a thumbnail, I link to in the descriptions below. So I like to encourage people to at least open up the description, have a look. I have affiliate links, all that kind of stuff in there. So it's worthwhile to have a look. You may discover something new and interesting. So let's get right into it. These are, again, as in my best of video, in no particular order. I kind of just spitballed a bunch of cushioned options, stuff that a few of these shoes may have been included in the last video, but stuff that I wanted to maybe talk about a little bit more in depth. So here we go. First off, we're going to look at straight away the Mafate 5 and the Mafate X. Check out my Mafate 5 video. At the end of that video there, and kind of get back to the truck, I had comments that people like my truck bed kind of close-ups. So if you want to have a more detailed close-up of, say, the Mafate Speed 4 Lite, Mafate X, and Mafate 5, I kind of look very much in depth at these two shoes, flex them in hand, talk about them in detail. Mafate Speed 5, I have one question here. I just can't see the type of run I would use these over current offerings. This question comes from Justin Parker 7712. The 5 mil lugs and marketing say take me on technical, but then they change to an 8 mil drop, huge increase in weight and increase the stack height. I count these shoes as a less obnoxious version of the Mafate X, which is more of a tech demo than an actual usable shoe. I'll go with the Speed 4 Lite version here, or Speedgo 6s over these any day, except maybe a heavier runner who would benefit from an increased stack. Those two current offerings are already high cushion, but with a nod towards weight savings that would actually be usable on long ultras versus the 5 or X's and handle technical just fine. Yes, things that I talked about in my Mafate 5 full review. You still get this deep, burly outsole. If you compare it to version 4, there's really no difference in the outsole here. You do have a little bit of connection in the rubber from the front to the rear of the shoe. That's missing in the 4. One thing I mentioned in my Speed 4 video, I'm getting mixed up between Speed 5 and, no, Mafate 5 and Speed 4, okay? So pardon me if I mix that up. There's no connection between this outsole rubber here. You have this kind of X here, which is just midsole, and this shoe is just excessively soft and also excessively flexible. This shoe, it's also, they did go up mega in stack here. This is a pretty big stack from version 4 to version 5. Flexibility is mostly maintained, but you do have that kind of plate in there, rocker integrity plate, which is kind of oriented in this type of shape. It doesn't extend towards the rear. So I found that it was still flexible in the middle and the rear of the shoe, but you do have these kind of outsole patches kind of holding the shoe together. So I find it less generally flexible as this shoe right here. I think this is a great option. All the points mentioned here by Justin Parker are pretty valid. They did go up in weight, and this is probably the concern that I hear from people that really love the Speed 4. They just went up in weight, went up in stack. The drop thing, I don't feel is very noticeable. People are talking about the 8 mil drop. I don't think that's a big deal. The 4 mil drop in this feels very flat to me. It has somewhat of a rocker here, but I think I have another comment later on. Somebody mentioned that you kind of, the shoe is so soft that the forefoot sinks in. It feels like you're kind of pushing through and not really rolling over into the rocker as quickly up front near the toes. So to me, it's probably mostly the softness that makes this feel like a flat shoe, make it feel 4 mil or even less. 8 mil here, the heel is also very soft, so you kind of sink into that portion of the shoe, and I just find that it doesn't feel like I'm at a tilt, like from the heel to the forefoot. It feels pretty stable, pretty balanced, and I would say it holds its drop, so to speak. Some shoes, you know, 4 mil feels flattish. 8 mil, this may feel more like say a 6 mil drop, or at least they have this plate in here to maintain the rocker or whatever. It does feel like it maintains something of a drop, which I think is good. Like if you're gonna say you have a 4 mil drop, it should feel like a 4, and it maybe shouldn't feel so flat. You have an 8, feels like 6, maybe 8. Quick look at the Mafate X here, just to demonstrate the stiffness. Again, go back and check out my video there where I really dig deep into these 3 models. Incredibly stiff. You have a plate going through here, so totally different shoe here. I think Justin Parker mentioned this is maybe a tech demo, and that could possibly be the case. Like, okay, we can stick a carbon fiber plate in a shoe. How far can we take this stack here? 48 under the heel I measured in this one. Here they kind of dialed it back to 46, went down in weight. Here, weight 12.4 ounces, 11.6 ounces. 11.6 is a lot, by the way. If 11.6 is a lot in my size, US 10s here all around in these 3 Hoka models, 12.4 is kind of excessive for me. And then you have this stability thing here, okay? So carbon plate, massive stack, we're talking 48. How far can we push the boundaries? Maybe it is kind of a tech demo. For me, personally, don't find this as a runnable, usable shoe. It's just too much for me. And that's where I feel like if I'm gonna run in, say, a max stack shoe, 46 under the heel is great for me. I mean, that is like at the edge of working. This is like just over the edge of working for me. And again, with the flexibility of this shoe, I think it works a lot better. So top cushioned models in 2025. I mean, this is not necessarily a 2025 shoe, but the Lite version did come out in 2025, although they had the Satisfy version, which is a somewhat similar upper that came out in 2024. These are great options if you are a fan of Hoka, you want to stick with Hoka, but you know, slight differences between these models. This one is still available, so you know, get your hands on a Speed 4 Lite if you are more of a fan of the Speed 4 model. I had one Q&A question here about the Speed 4 Lite from CY1425. Raced a pretty technical half yesterday in this. Agree with your points. It's cushioned, comfortable cruiser, handled it all well, but it's not fast. Also took several runs to break in. Upper was very stiff at first. This is the Speed 4 Lite. Yes, comfortable cushioned cruiser. I have 2 videos actually on this shoe. I kind of mixed it up, went into some different terrain and did a more fuller review in the second one. I just found it very soft. It's comfortable. It's so cushy underfoot. When you want to like baby your feet on a run, this is the shoe for you. I didn't find any issues with the upper. I think it's not an upper that's gonna break in too much. It's kind of a plasticky type. There's some underlays here. Maybe some may feel stiff a little out of the box, but I found right away it was not an issue for me. So no break-in period. The first video, actually, I did check the heel area. I talked about this before. So again, not a fast shoe. I find, you know, this shoe feels quick for 11.6 ounces. This is 10 ounces right here, significantly lighter, of course, than this shoe, but maybe I'm thinking compared to other 10-ounce shoes, it just feels a little soft, a little bit you know, not as fast. And that softness is going to be tricky to handle in technical terrain. Another new option, Rabbit High Country, first trail shoe from Rabbit. Have a question here from PBNOTJ1. Appreciate the heavier runner comments. You know, he's a heavier runner, 6'1", and super soft foams usually just collapse too much for me. That said, I don't mind lighter shoes with a denser foam plate. If a bit lighter, lower stack, more nimble, then it just gets me to turn over quicker and a bit lighter. Another question here from Omar Mendoza, 2950. Very nice trail shoes. I have a question about the toe box. Is it wide like a Topo or Ultra or similar? Thanks. We are talking about, where is this shoe? The Rabbit High Country here. I was kind of surprised by this shoe because, I'm gonna show you this right now. It feels kind of stiff. There's Carbon Trax plates, which are two separate plates kind of in the middle here. I thought in hand they were stiff. When I first put them on, I thought the shoe was quite stiff. And even actually now, it does feel kind of stiff. So I went out for my test run. I have a test video on this shoe right here. I pulled over to the side for a close-up and I was like gonna show how stiff they were, and I started twisting it and I'm like, whoa, it's kind of soft. So I'm kind of not certain what's going on with that. It seems to kind of loosen up over the course of a run, because I remember feeling this type of firmness when I first got them. When I first ran them, they certainly loosened up over the course of my test running. Now they seem stiff again. But over the course of that test run, they did seem to loosen up as I got up the hill a bit there. So this is a super cushion option. And again, this commenter, as a heavier runner, I feel like it's a denser foam. It's certainly, in comparison to this shoe, you don't have that soft squish underfoot. It's more of a denser rebounding foam. Quick check on the weight here, 11.2 ounces. So this is definitely a heavier type of shoe, but you have 42 is what I measured at the heel, 37 under the forefoot, 5 mil drop. It's a comfortable cruiser shoe. You could kind of see what they've got going on. A very comfortable swoop kind of Achilles collar here, soft brush materials on the inside. The upper is pretty thick and durable mesh here. The upper itself gives you a lot of comfort, which is something maybe you'll see a theme. A lot of these shoes, compared to the performance model, they give you a little bit more kind of upper durability, upper kind of beef to them. So I think this is going to work better and be more durable than some of those super shoes. Taking a quick look at the toe box here, I find the forefoot width is good, but it does tend to narrow a little bit up at the toes. I didn't have any issues in this shoe. I actually have a US 9.5, so I was unsure of Rabbit. Obviously, this is Rabbit's first trail shoe. I haven't run in one of their road models, so I figured I'd go true to size, see how it went. I did run thin socks in US 9.5, and fit was good. I didn't get any squeezing across the forefoot, but a Topo or an Ultra is gonna kind of stay wide at the front of the toe box, where this shoe doesn't. It's also, I find, a little bit low volume over the top. I find like this section of the shoe was kind of on top of my foot a little bit. So not as kind of voluminous or wide at the front of the toe box compared to, say, a Topo or an Ultra. But if you're a heavier runner and you're looking for, say, a comfort shoe that's not super soft, like these kind of shoes are in the same kind of realm, I would say. But this one definitely leans softer, especially under the heel. This one has a more kind of consistent reactive feel throughout. Like you don't have a excessively soft heel compared to the front of the shoe. It just has a very consistent feel throughout the foot strike pattern. I found that this was a great downhill shoe. I was kind of running down this dirt road behind my house over here, and I was just like bombing down that hill. Like 11.2 ounces, maybe a little bit hefty for me to kind of pull up a long extended climb, but on the downhill, loved bombing in this shoe. Prodigio Max. When you come to test a Prodigio Max, I would recommend you give it at least 20 miles before you judge the foam feel. It gets much more bouncy and softer feeling over the first few runs. Thanks for the great videos. Thank you for the comment, Nick Benjamin 6527. This shoe, I've kind of been working the test miles in. I did a, I think, 14 miler last night in them. I've been holding my thoughts and my review on this shoe, really trying as Nick Benjamin here commented, trying to break it in a bit because this is quite a high stack. I measure 37-31 for the max here compared to 33 at the heel in the Prodigio Pro. So based on my measurements, you're going up 4 mil in stack on the heel in this shoe compared to the Prodigio Pro here. Just finding that doesn't translate into uber softness. This is not a super soft feel. I'm having kind of a little bit trouble with the feel of this shoe. I'm not sure if I am enjoying it. Maybe I'm kind of biased because I love this shoe so much. There's more EVA in the mix here. There's more of that nitro TPU centered under the foot here. And I think the big difference between these two shoes is the flexibility. You see here, the outsole is not fully continuous in the Pro model, whereas it is in the Max model here. Also, the foam is different, as I said. One of the great things about this shoe, which works well for me personally, is just this flex. I find that the toe rockers are similar up front, but the flex, I feel like, really helps and makes this a really quick and fast shoe. This one, you have that toe rocker, which I notice. I kind of feel it similar to North Face Vective models. I feel it at the front of the toes, like the front of my toes and the bottom of my small toes are kind of on the bottom of this shoe right here in the toe box. I'm having trouble transitioning in this shoe is what I'm trying to say. It feels nice and wide. I love that. Got good feel there, but with this continuous rubber, this is a full coverage outsole here, as you can see. So this is going to be very protective. It's definitely more protective underfoot than the Pro model, but you're sacrificing a lot of that, I don't know, snap or something like that. It doesn't have a super bouncy feel either, and I just find it transitioning a little bit trickier. It's kind of like a tight rubber band in this midsole area, whereas I'm struggling to keep it going. So this could be a good option, again, if you're a heavier runner. 11.1 ounces, so it's similar to the Rabbit shoe. It does feel a little bit more nimble. The Rabbit shoe, you've got a lot of foam around it. It feels like a beefier, kind of cruisery shoe. This feels a little bit more agile, yet it's still kind of held back a little bit by the weight of it, kind of the flatness under the forefoot here. I'm gonna do a full review on this shoe, of course. I'll probably do a little bit more in-depth, you know, AB, not necessarily an AB run, but maybe at the end of the run, I'll kind of compare these two shoes in more detail. But trying to work out the miles in this one, finding it a little less soft, a little bit, I don't know, having trouble getting it rolling like some of the other shoes. Moving on, Fuga EX3. This comment comes from Ian Matt 4182. Nice review as always. Not a brand or model I've seen over here in the UK. I'm curious though, how stable do you think they would be on severe technical terrain? This is the EX3. I talked about the EX Pro in my last video. That has a supercritical TPU, eTPU midsole. This one's straight EVA, non-supercritical, but I just like the feeling of the shoe. It's, you know, it says 8 mil drop right here. It feels like an 8 mil drop. The Pro model, I believe, is 5 or 6, a little bit lower drop. The eTPU is very energetic. That feels more kind of super shoe-ish. This feels more trainer-ish with the regular EVA, the 8 mil drop, which is noticeable, but I just find the upper super comfortable, and find with that 8 mil drop, it kind of works as a training shoe because I just find it rolls very smoothly, and the 8 mil drop just kind of keeps me a little bit oriented moving forward, even though it's like a regular EVA high stack kind of. Let's look here. I measure 38-30 here, okay, and 11.1 ounces. So you're seeing a trend here. A lot of these Max shoes, as they're getting up into, say, the close to 40 millimeter at the heel kind of range, they're going up in weight. So it's very difficult to keep that weight down once you start going higher and higher. But at 11.1, I was actually very surprised that this shoe felt very smooth on the run. The upper, similar to the EX Pro model, this is the EX3, again, very comfortable. The tongue is well padded. The quick lace cinches everything nice and tight without any lace bite or feeling of these laces getting through to the foot. Very comfortable around the collar. They seem to drop it down nicely here, squared off here. It's not overly high like a shoe that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Just a great training shoe. I would recommend this one if you could kind of maybe try it out and get your hands on it. The question was about severe technical terrain. With an 8 mil drop, with this being kind of regular EVA, it doesn't feel as nimble and as, say, flexible in severe technical terrain. I think it's manageable. They give you a Vibram full coverage outsole here, so it's pretty protective underfoot. Protection is going to be fine, but I think the agility is not amazing in severe technical terrain. I think the EX Pro is definitely better though. I'm actually going to head up to the Sawtooths in maybe a couple weeks or so, and I want to do a long run in the EX Pro, so keep an eye out for that. Moving on, Wildhorse 10, great video. Between these and the Enduris 4, which would be your pick? Thanks. This is the Nike Wildhorse 10. Did a review video on this one, kind of a long run. I was surprised. I kind of like the React X feel. It felt a little bit springier than I would have expected. I thought it would be like a heavier, chunkier shoe on the run. This is kind of, compared to some of these other models, the build quality and construction, I don't think is as dialed performance-wise. They're just the tongue seems a little like puffy and a little bit, it seems more like a standard shoe that you'd see in a big box store. There's kind of like these elements here that are just like hanging off a little. There's a few parts of this shoe that just seem like it's like a mass market kind of shoe. Interesting about this shoe, I think it's a little bit low volume at the front. For some reason, I tested the Terra Kiger 10 in a 9.5, but I had the thought that I should probably get this one in a 10. I don't know why. I never tried it on. I just kind of was like looking at it. I'm like, I probably want to have a 10 in this shoe, and I'm happy that I did because this is quite a low volume. It's kind of tight in here, so I would definitely go up a half a size from your true to size if you were wanting to stick with a Nike training shoe, because it's just a little bit tight over here. I kind of have to keep these a little bit loose. Let's go back to the question here. Compared to the Enduris 4, a little bit lighter in my size. I want to guess this is an 11L shoe. Let me double check. I've got this one at 11.5 ounces. If I look at the Endurance 4, I've got this at 10.9 ounces. So this is the lighter shoe. I've got the Wildhorse 10 at 39 under the heel, 39, 29 and a half. This is spec'd actually at a 10 mil drop, which is kind of wild. I had another question about this. Is the 10 mil drop noticeable? And then I had a follow-up comment. So it has that aggressive taper of thickness from the ball of the foot forward, which seems to be a Nike hallmark. This comment's from ML Hunt. To me, Nike shoes usually feel thinner at the toe than their stated drops would lead me to expect. Never run in a Nike trail shoe, but this is the main reason I've never really liked their road shoes. Might not bother me in a trail shoe though. So this is something I talked about in my review. It's a 10 mil drop, but it doesn't feel like a 10 mil difference from here to here. And what this, what ML Hunt is talking about here, it just tapers very fast at the front of the toes. Like I feel like I'm landing, I have full support contouring under the arch, which is great. Feels great under the heel, great under the ball of the foot. And then it just like really tapers right in front of the ball of the foot. So you gonna get a quick roll, so it doesn't make it feel like a 10 mil drop. So if you're worried about a 10 mil drop, I wouldn't be, because it doesn't feel like I'm tilted forward at a 10 mil slant. I almost feel like it's definitely maybe closer to a 6 from here to here. But then if you're concerned about that kind of Nike thing where the front like part of the shoe here just gets very thin, that's definitely the case in this shoe. So it narrows kind of in volume over here, and also you can almost see it here. The midsole here just narrows, tapers very quickly. So I would pick the Enduris 4 to answer your question there. This shoe is, again, I have it, I think 0.6 ounces lighter. It just feels more balanced shoe. This shoe, the platform is kind of narrower. I think you get a little more balance in the Enduris 4 here, a little bit more width. This feels narrow and tall. This feels like a better ratio of the height to the width of a shoe, especially in a training shoe. Of course, a racing shoe. Seth Ruling wore this, won Black Canyon's 100K. A lot of North Face athletes are picking this over the Pro 3, and there's definite reasons for that, which I have come to, you know, learn about myself. It's just like a smooth shoe. There's not a lot of crazy action underfoot. The width keeps you stable. Upper security is very good. I feel totally dialed in this. You have a nice, comfortable wide forefoot, slight taper, but not too much. I think it makes it kind of manageable in technical terrain because you don't have a big wide, you know, front of the shoe there to kind of plow through things. This is just an overall solid shoe and probably one of the top picks on this table here. I would definitely go with this shoe over the Wildhorse 10. Okay, this one comes from Nils Kaufman 1725. Discovered your channel recently. I love it. Talking about the Infinite 3. That's why I'd rather use the Mafate Speed 4 for longer trails or the Prodigio Pro for faster trails. How would you compare the Enduris 4 to the Mafate Speed for longer mountain trails? Any chance the Enduris 4 are more reactive? I'm a 4-foot runner and stable enough at the same time on steep terrain. Talked about this earlier, about this shoe specifically, the softness of the shoe. I think it holds it back in technical terrain. I feel like when I land, your foot sinks into the shoe, and especially, this is Nils Kaufman here, as a 4-foot runner, he did mention your forefoot sinks in, and in that time where your forefoot is sinking in, you know, you're moving, so that gives a little wobble, and I find it a little tricky. And sometimes definitely steep terrain, technical terrain, that little wobble is not necessarily what you want to have. This foam, you have a good volume of it, but it's a little bit denser. It feels reactive, but not as squishy, I would say. And it definitely, I'm lining them up here, tough to see, but you definitely have more width in here. So if you're a 4-foot runner, I definitely feel more comfortable in technical terrain on this shoe. You definitely have to be comfortable and aware about the rocker, because you know, you're on a rocker setup. It has that rolling design. It's somewhat stiff in that rocker shape, within that rocker shape. So you have to be aware about that and used to that kind of thing. It's not a super kind of flexy or adaptable to everything shoe, say like the Prodigio. I think he did mention the Prodigio Pro here. So it's not gonna ride the same as this shoe, but you're gonna be way more protected, especially if you're going over a longer distance in this shoe with the plate in the mix. It's going to be a more stable kind of cruiser, maybe not super fast, but I think he did mention going at speed, steep technical terrain. Yeah, I would go with this over this one. And also, I'll throw the Mafate 5 in. This one has a closer width to the Enduris 4. Definitely more softness in this one, especially under the heel as well. So I would still give the edge in technical terrain, and a lot of stuff is certainly weight, this shoe right here. One more question about the Enduris 4. If you were to choose between this shoe and the Cloudultra Pro, I don't have the Cloudultra Pro, I have the Cloudultra 3 in front of me here. For the Kodiak 100K, which are you choosing? The Vective Pro 2 is my favorite trail shoe to date. This comes from James Stewart, 6232. Funny enough, I did run, maybe he knew this, the Kodiak 100K in the Vective Pro 2. I thought that shoe was awesome. The firmness of it kind of a little bit towards the end of the race, maybe the last 10 miles or so, the plate of the Pro 2 kind of felt firm under the forefoot. Maybe that's probably one of the reasons why they just bumped up the volume of foam so much in the Pro 3. Maybe they went a little bit overboard in that regard, but they wanted to kind of eliminate that firmness of feel that you could get from that Pro 2. If I were to choose between this shoe, the Enduris 4, and the Cloudultra Pro for Kodiak. Kodiak last year, there was a fire, so we were on a different part of the course, but I think it's kind of similar. I think this shoe would be great for Kodiak if you like this shoe, but I think Kodiak is runnable enough that the Cloudultra Pro, you're gonna save a lot of weight compared to this shoe. I don't have the Cloudultra Pro. That was in my best of 2025 video for sure, so go back if you want more details on that. Also, full review video on the Cloudultra Pro. I think that's a faster shoe than this one. I like this more so for training, and the Cloudultra Pro for racing. That's just hands down the way it is. I think that's going to work better for me. Unless you're a North Face athlete, then you're going to have to be racing in this one. Quick cut there. My phone overheated, had to swap out there. Pixel 6a. Next shoe I'm going to take a look at is the Salomon S-Lab Ultra Glide. This is a shoe I tested late in 2024. Ran this through the winter months. A little bit of, I don't know, is this a 2024 release? I'm not quite sure. It might have come out around 2025. They showed this at UTMB last year. I've been running a lot in the S-Lab Pulsar 4 here, so I thought I'd take a look at this one, check out some similarities. This is a shoe that I wasn't crazy about. They just came out with a version 1.5 recently. They lowered this kind of heel tab right here, and this is something I talked about in my review as being problematic. I just didn't find any reason why this needs to come up that high. I also have similar feelings about the DV8 Nitro Elite Trail. I raced in that shoe and did get a blister from that one. This one is more of a softer, it's a little bit more of a flexible. They have this soft felty material on the inside here. I felt it pushing up against the back of my Achilles, but I never got a blister from it. Hopefully in 1.5 that'll completely eliminate that issue if you pick up that shoe. I didn't run this super long, so maybe I would get a blister if I did. I think I probably should take this out for a little bit more miles now that the weather is a little bit warmer than the last time I was running in this shoe. I just didn't, overall wasn't sold on this shoe, especially at the price point being $250. I had issues mainly with the tongue. It's like this soft neoprene material on the inside. I just felt it kind of moved around too much, or my foot on the underside of it would just slide around. I just didn't get a positive, secure feeling of lockdown in this shoe. This shoe, the Pulsar 4, just for comparison, has a similar kind of tongue design where it has a soft neoprene type feel on the inside. Even the gussets are very smooth. Maybe it's just the kind of shape of this shoe, the more secure fit than this kind of more comfort oriented upper here, that gives it a kind of more positive feel. But I don't feel my foot moving around at all on the inside of this shoe. The underside of this tongue setup here, which is pretty much the same design here, this one does feel, might have a little bit more padding, a little bit more softer than this one. This one has some kind of mesh ventilation here, and this one is kind of straight neoprene with some cushion at the upper section throughout. Difference I will point out is this has gillies here on both sides for the laces. I think they call these, even if they're knit like this, gillies. And I just felt like, maybe that didn't help with the tongue setup there. This one, you have these similar gillies on the medial side, but on the lateral side, you have regular eyelets here. So they switch that up a little between these two models. And I think this quick lace, sometimes they're regular in the sense that they're holes, but they go in here and out through there, and they don't go on the underside here. So they kind of stay in there. And I feel like sometimes when I'm loosening the tension on the laces, it takes a little bit of tugging to kind of adjust where I want the tension in my laces, which I think is good for this type of shoe. It seems to like stay within this in-out eyelet type setup here without moving it around. This one, I think maybe the laces are just sliding around and it's just getting loose. You know, I didn't like that, but seems to work totally different in this shoe, and I really am enjoying running in this shoe. So S-Lab Ultra Glide here. I did a comparison video with this one and a shoe from Brooks. Not crazy about this one, but maybe I'll put a few more miles in and see what I think when I revisit it. Another shoe I have here is Cloudultra 3. Question from Wilk 5280. I'm just the opposite when it comes to sizing. I'm 11 in the Pro, 11 and a half in the 3. I definitely feel the 3 being closer to the ground and more stable, better suited for technical terrain, especially downhills. Not as much pop in the 3, Cloudultra 3, compared to the Pro. Another question from Cody Jung 6963. Based on these impressions, what are you taking for all-around training and racing between this and the Enduris 4? So we'll start there. All-around training and racing. Let's go with the all-around training thing. This shoe definitely feels closer to the ground, as Wilk 5280 mentioned. It does feel more stable. The Pro stack height is higher. Helion HF setup is a little bit different. They both have a dual layer setup between Helion foams, Cloudultra 3 versus the Pro. But for me, the Pro, of course, uses springier kind of foams. Like both of the foams seem a little bit more springier and energetic than this one. This one feels like definitely the layer closest to the ground is pretty firm. I did a first run video on the Cloudultra 3, so definitely check that one out. It doesn't feel super soft, and it's noticeable mostly under the forefoot in this shoe. The Cloudultra Pro feels very soft under the forefoot, but the Speedboard gets you going. It's just like a great soft super shoe type racing feel with that propulsive effect. Here, you don't quite get that soft feel, and for me, most noticeably under the forefoot. The width of the shoe is really good. I like it as a training shoe, not having that softness, not having that squish and that kind of bounce. I find this better for a training shoe. For, I would say, all-around training, I think this is a great option. I think I ran maybe 2 days ago in this shoe, night run. I did about, not night run, early evening run. I did about 10 miles in this shoe. So I think runs in that range, an hour, hour and a half plus, even and beyond, depending on how comfortable you are with like a firmer kind of a ride and not a super soft ride. You know, sky's the limit if you like that type of shoe. Hour, hour and a half range for me, 10, 15 miles. I think this is a great shoe personally for training. It gives me more ground feel. I talked about in my S-Lab Pulsar 4 video wanting to personally run in more lighter weight shoes than some of these big shoes on my training runs, just to get used to it. I mean, it's, you know, if I can get myself used to running in, say, shoes that are closer to 9 ounces, or even at a higher kind of range of stack and cushion, shoes that are closer to the 10-ounce mark versus, say, the 11-ounce mark and beyond, I think that will just be better for me as a runner. I'll run faster, I'll probably be more efficient, build up my foot strength, that kind of thing. So great option here for that. All around training and racing, this is gonna feel more comfortable for longer distance miles. If you really want that comfort, cruisy feel underfoot, I talked about in my comparison video, I talked about this shoe compared to the Infinite 3. The Infinite 3 feels like a very quick shoe underfoot. It just feels nice. And then I transitioned to this shoe and I was like, oh, it feels a little slow. It feels a little like heavy, but over longer miles, that's kind of like what you want. You just want to lock into a pace, be steady, have the shoe support you underfoot, be comfortable, have a nice secure upper, protect your foot. You know, not much gets through to the foot from this shoe, so that's a great thing for long miles. You don't want to come and have your feet feel beat up after a long run. That is oftentimes the objective when you're going out for longer training runs. This shoe, you'll get more, I would say it would maybe, you know, like I said, you could take this for longer miles, but there's less protection, there's less cushion underfoot, but it's more nimble and agile. So I don't really see this as a racing shoe, actually, because you have the Pro for that. If you didn't like that soft feel of the Pro, that energetic type feel, then this would be the racing option that maybe you would go to as opposed to the Pro. But then in the training realm, you have this for maybe a more agile feel, and this for maybe a longer, cruisier feel with some overlap in the middle. That's generally how I look at it. Next shoe to take a quick look at, and I have a question about it, is the Merrell MTL Adapt Matryx here. This comes from Lus87. I'm torn between the Adapt and the Hierro version 9. I'm sorry, I have not run in a New Balance trail shoe in quite some time, or ever. I think I had a Gobi a long time ago, if that's a trail shoe. I know the Adapt's ride isn't as soft, but how is the energy return? With a supercritical foam, it would be solid. I think he's talking about the energy return. Not sure why companies make max cushion shoes if they're not maximally cushioned. I'm a 190-pound casual runner and in Colorado at high altitude somewhat here. I talk about this a lot in my reviews. I try to get a flavor of different types of runners, not just me as a lighter weight runner myself. This shoe kind of is interesting because it has that max stack here. Let me double check here. 42 at the heel, 36 under the forefoot, 6 mil drop. 42 is pretty big. Talk about some shoes being in the 40 plus range at higher weights. This shoe I have at 10.2 ounces. So you have an incredibly high stack with a relatively incredible, given that high stack, low weight. When I tested this shoe, I found that it was actually quite agile because you got these flex grooves underfoot. It's not an inherently flexible shoe. The foam is not super soft and squishy and flexy, say, like as much as this shoe here, although it is somewhat close. They did a good job of putting in these grooves here. That's kind of, it says Flex Connect on here. That's one of the marketing and one of the performance features of the shoe, and it does work really well. They're able to get up to that stack height and have it be relatively nimble underfoot. The Matryx upper certainly helps with keeping the weight down, which is great for me. There's a big toe rocker in this shoe. So similar, I would say, kind of underfoot, it feels kind of similar in that you're well supported as the Wildhorse 10 here. From the heel through to here, the Nike tends to thin out in the midsole. I don't think this one thins out in the midsole, but it has a big high toe sweep here. So you kind of have a solid landing and then a roll off at the front, in front of the forefoot there. So you don't have as a smoother of a roll as, say, like this Vective rocker kind of starts earlier and you're kind of like landing here and have a smoother roll throughout. This one, you're kind of landing like this and getting a quicker toe off at the front there. So it's a little bit different setup and ride. Also for heavier runners, I think this density of foam is great. I think the color of it makes it look, I don't know, this translucent yellowish greenish makes it look kind of like, I don't know, super soft and bouncy, but it's not an overly soft shoe. It has that kind of reactive feel, but I think especially this commenter mentioned being a heavier runner. Personally, that could definitely be good. I think those softer, squishier foams, you don't necessarily want to have that, because as a heavier runner, that just, you know, you're going to pack those down quicker. They may not feel as responsive because you're just squishing into the foam as much. I think you want like a denser type of setup as a heavier runner. So I think this is a great option there. Unfortunate that this shoe kind of got lost in the shuffle, because I was running in this shoe, I believe in the fall, maybe early, or maybe through the winter or early in the, but it took so long for the shoe to come out. I think Merrell missed the mark here. They should have got the shoe out earlier, because people stopped talking about it, because, you know, the reviews were out and people were interested in asking questions, but it took so long for the shoe to come out. So it did get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Okay, so I've got a few more shoes here. We'll look at the VJ Ultra 3 here. I have this one measured at 35 under the heel. They do give an 8 mil drop spec, so that puts it at 27 under the forefoot, 9.7 ounces, 274 grams. This is a lightweight shoe for sure. Definitely, what did I say? I measured 35 at the heel. I think they spec 37 there. The foam on this feel, I was talking about the last commenter mentioned themselves being a heavier runner. This is one of those shoes that has a very soft foam. It's kind of a interesting setup here, because they went with the technically oriented, you know, butyl rubber, VJ, the best grip on the planet kind of setup here, rock plate and everything, very flexible, but the foam is just, it's so soft. Toe box is also something to point out. Topo-esque, like if you're looking for like a shoe with a comfortable toe box, and I'm getting into this, if you're a lighter weight runner, I think this is a great option. The previous commenter asking about this one, but this being a dense high stack foam, this is kind of a, not as high as this one, but the foam is just super soft. So I'm not sure this is a great option if you're a heavier runner. People have talked about the midsole packing down in the shoe. I have a feeling that maybe it could depend on your running style, maybe possibly your size as a runner, because I could see this getting squished down if you're on the heavier side. I like the energetic feel, but I also find that that softness holds it back in technical terrain. It's kind of like the setup is at odds between the outsole, the rock plate, the protection, but the soft foam is a little bit, I would say, uncontrollable, not uncontrollable, a little bit more difficult to control in technical terrain. So a little tricky setup here in this shoe. Another shoe I'll take a look at here, and I did have one question here, the Scarpa Spin Ultra 2. And this comment comes from Zachary Gardner, 9425. If this is Zach Gardner that I ran with at Heaven's Gate. Hey Zach, Norda Pro athlete here. I love it when the midfoot and heel are not flexible. That's how the foot works as well, and it makes sense for mountain trails. It's nice to see something with a plastic shank like in the Mutant Cyclone Akasha, but modern foam. Scarpa Spin Ultra 2 here. I didn't mention this in my super shoe video because I didn't see it as a, say, lightweight performance shoe, but maybe I'm thinking in regards of the trails and stuff that I'm typically training and racing in, not necessarily always that mountain stuff. But in that type of mountain terrain, this is definitely an option. Quick specs check. I've got 34-30 here, so this is probably on the lower range of these shoes. This might be at 34 in terms of these big cushioned options here. This might be the lowest. 34-30, 4 mil drop, has a TPEE foam. Check out my review videos on this one. This is not the same TPEE that you'll see in the Norda 005. Definitely denser and energetic, and as Zach Garner here mentions, in the heel and the midfoot, less of that kind of flex there. And in mountain terrain, this is going to be protective. I see this as a great shoe to run in alpine terrain. I also took this through a bunch of like off-trail stuff where I was bushwhacking. I was running some weird off-trail stuff in this shoe by accident the other day, and it made me mention this shoe in the video because I thought, wow, this would be great in that, where you don't necessarily know where your foot is going and you want that protection underfoot, but it also has pretty good flex up at the front. The energy of that TPEE is very good, okay? So I don't think this is gonna stack up in terms of runability or everyday training compared to the super shoes that I mentioned in my best of 2025 video, and some of these cushion, more cruisery, rockered shoes that we're talking about in terms of cushion training. This is gonna feel firm if you're in moderate terrain or like flat, hard terrain. But if you're in rocky, alpine terrain, off trail, mountain terrain, as I often see Zach running in based on his Instagram, this is definitely a great option for you. So those technical trail runners, maybe some of you out in Europe, take a look at the Scarpa Spin Ultra 2. So we'll round this out here. A couple of options I have on the way that are not in front of me. Norda 001A, that shoe just came out. I don't quite think of the 001 as a highly cushioned shoe in the realm of these models, but they say that it's a lighter shoe and they say that's more energetic, so maybe if it has a quite different feel than the 001. I did a test video in the Norda 001, also a bunch of Norda videos on the channel. I like that shoe. It feels stable but in a firmer way, so we'll see how the 001A feels in comparison. Maybe it's more energetic. That could be a good thing. Also, Speedland GS-TMT. I had some trouble with the GS platforms. Those platforms are surely in the cushion range. The first one I had, the TAM, was a 10. I had a 9.5 in the PGH, I think. I'm all the way down to a US 9 in the PDX, and that feels perfect. So I am sizing down in Speedland, so I hope to get a sample of the TMT. Apparently, lighter weight foam in the GS platform with burly lugs sounds highly interesting to me, especially if I can get it in the size that's working well for me now in Speedland. So hopefully I will have a GS platform Speedland shoe that will work for me, and then I could put it in the mix with the rest of these. Craft shoes, I have the Explore 2, Explore Pro, Nord Lite Ultra Pro. I might get one or two of those shoes in for test. I tested the Nord Lite Ultra 2, which is more of a kind of speedy, gravelly type shoe, not as cushy and soft, cruisery as these kind of shoes. A little bit different setup. Those Explore models definitely are kind of advertised as gravel shoes, definitely more cushion cruisery, similar to a lot of these models on the table here. So the next video I'll have on the docket in terms of a roundup like this, maybe best of fall 2025, some of the shoes that I mentioned. I also have some shoes from on the way. I have the Cloud Surfer Trail coming. I have the Trail waterproof version. It's way too hot. My phones are overheating here. This is my second phone swap of this video. Definitely too hot to be running in a waterproof shoe, so hopefully I'll get into that one as the temperatures cool down, and maybe we'll do a fall roundup. Maybe I'll get some other cool models in for test, you never know. One last thing, I would like to rate your trail running Quiver. I had an idea for a video. My friend who does ski stuff does a similar type of thing, and he thought it could be fun also for trail shoes, so I thought it could be interesting and fun. Go to my YouTube homepage, my email's there, mike@humblerunning.com. If you would like me to take a look at or give a think about your trail running shoe Quiver, send me what you've got. Don't send me a list of 20 shoes or anything like that, okay? We don't want to make one of these expansive documentaries again about your trail running shoes. Let's keep it around the, say, 3 to 5 to 7 range, whatever your Quiver is. The most important aspects of your Quiver in terms of versatility, what shoes you use for different runs. Send me it, maybe give me a little short summary on what you think maybe about each shoe, why you run in this shoe in this type of terrain or another shoe, or what the different scenarios you use your different shoes in your Quiver for, and I will have a think on it, and I will hopefully there'll be a lot of overlap with shoes on this table here or other shoes that I have. If there's something that I haven't tested, feel free to throw that in, and maybe that would be interesting for me to think about as a potential alternative. If that sounds like an interesting idea, shoot me an email, mike@humblerunning.com, and I will rate your trail running Quiver. This will not be a roast, okay? Don't be afraid. I'm not gonna make fun of the shoes that you're running in, anything like that. If they're shoes that I've been running in and testing, I'm sure they're fine, okay? Okay, this is meant to be informative and analytical. And it could be fun to kind of get people thinking about, you know, a range of shoes that you might want to have yourself in your Quiver. So check down in the comments for all the links to videos of the shoes that I've talked about today, shoes in my last video. Check out my last best of 2025 video to see more racy, lightweight, super shoe type options, related content, related links, videos that I've done. I always put those down in the description. Also, I have my affiliate links there. Check out www.humblerunning.com. Sometimes I have companion articles, and I have a newsletter that I send out every 2 weeks where I summarize what I did over the last 2 weeks. I try to keep it on schedule, no spam. The newsletter will show up in your inbox and just remind you of what's going on. And maybe sometimes I have sneak peeks of reviews that are upcoming, shoes that I have in for test that I really haven't posted on yet. So check out the website, sign up for the newsletter. Always check out the description if you choose to purchase any of these models based on my information and opinions and hard work here on creating this content. Please think about using my affiliate links. It does help out the channel. Thank you for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video.